I feel like the outfit is giving like a very clear Yukari reference without necessarily being schoolgirl. I wasn't sure about the bow, but like I have red ribbon, so how could I not? Last summer, I made a video discussing my experience playing Persona 3 Portable for the first time. Today, I'm going to be talking about my experience playing Persona 3 Reload. I'm going to be talking about a lot of the same things because it's a pretty faithful adaptation of the original game, just with a lot of expansion. But if you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts about Portable specifically, you can hop on over to that video after this video is over. But in my video discussing Portable, I did say that I would be much more willing to commit to an 80 to 90 hour experience if the quality of life of Persona 3 was just streamlined. And commit, I did. I think I clocked in. I think my final playtime was about 86 hours, 87 give or take. I did have a couple of game overs because I got a little bit overzealous. You know, I was at that 85 to 90 hour mark in terms of my playtime, and I loved it. I was not losing steam. With a lot of titles, I find it easy to start tuning out during social sim scenes, especially when there's not a lot of action happening. But I was just so enthralled by this world and so taken in that even though not much is happening on the screen all the time, I was just watching, taking it in, letting it wash over me. I played Reload on normal. I felt the pacing was pretty fair. I really hate grinding for EXP. There is a little bit of grinding, especially if you want to get all of your party members up. But if you kind of have a good sense of who you like working with, you don't necessarily have to spend all that time doing it. There are also some new mechanical additions that make it easier to gain EXP faster for party members who might be a little bit on the lower side. That being said, I got almost all of the trophies, which I've never done for a Persona game. I almost platinumed. I missed one, and it's the most annoying one to miss. I'll get more into it later when it becomes relevant. For anybody who's watching this and is unfamiliar with Persona, Persona 3 has lived many lives. There are 2 versions of the game on the PS2 that came out in the late 2000s. So that's the original Persona 3, and then they released an enhanced port with a little bit more story content. Then they moved the game onto the PSP for Persona 3 Portable. P3P has since been digitally re-released on the Switch, PC, PlayStation. I don't know about Xbox, but maybe. It's a watered down version of the experience almost, but they add a playable girl protagonist, which at least the modern trilogy of Persona has yet to do. But she was added to really entice the existing player base into replaying Persona 3. Typically, a lot of remake projects try to be the definitive version of the game. So if there's several offshoots of content, they try to localize all of that into one place. Persona 3 Reload unfortunately does not do that. Some of the additional story content is coming out later this year as DLC, but right now there are no plans to add the pink route. Unfortunately, even though people really want it, they've been very public that it would cost too much money, expend too many resources, which is not an awesome excuse because you're going to recoup that back because the people really want it. There's an incredible modding community online who are working really hard to make the girl route accessible to players. You can go check that out. There's a lot of really awesome stuff on YouTube. Story-wise, Persona 3 Reload follows a group of students who are experiencing a phenomenon called the Dark Hour, which is an extra quote-unquote hour that sort of exists between midnight. At night, their school transforms into a 265-floor tower called Tartarus, and they explore this tower to defeat shadows and strengthen their personas, which are manifestations of their inner selves that grant them magical powers. You play as Makoto Yuki. I'm calling him Makoto for the sake of this video. It's his like canon name, but you can name him whatever you want. You follow him basically through every day of his life, starting at the top of the school year in April as a transfer student to Gekkoukan High, and it's your choice as to how you spend his time. You go to school Monday through Saturday, but the afternoons and evenings, you're deciding what to do. Are you going to go to track practice? Are you going to hang out with girls because straight? Are you going to do an under-the-counter deal with the police to get weapons? The world is your oyster. So the combat element is climbing through the tower. It's similar to Pokemon in that you level up. There's a creature collector aspect to it because Makoto can use multiple personas. In tandem with the battling, there's a big focus on the social aspect of the game. You spend a lot of time developing social links, which are just like hanging out with friends, meeting new people. All these people are associated with a specific tarot card from the major arcana, which interacts with your persona stuff at night because each persona is assigned an arcana type as well. So if you have a stronger bond with the person who represents the magician, your magician personas are going to get more experience. They're going to become more powerful. The power of friendship has never been more present than in games like Persona. In the background, there's a growing epidemic of something called apathy syndrome, which is like depression maxing. Basically, people become really dysfunctional to where they can't like move and eventually they do die. Our characters aren't really affected by this, but as the game continues, you can see more and more people lying down on benches, being on the ground, kind of standing in a zombie-like posture, not really moving. Those are the bones of the story and the gameplay. I really enjoyed Reload. I thought it was so successful. If it wasn't good, I wouldn't have finished it on normal. I think it's a really good remake. I do think a lot of effort went into making it good. One of my frustrations is that it's not the definitive experience that a lot of people were looking for, especially because I'm familiar with the Persona 3 story. I've played the original, I played Portable. I just haven't played the girl route, and it would have been nice to do that on this platform. I would have gladly replayed a second time with the girl protagonist. There's a couple of reasons why I found this frustrating. I think the DLC for Aegis's story is a little bit expensive, and I think that price is artificially inflated because you have to get the season pass, which includes costumes and extra music. If you're someone who is comfortable paying a little bit of cash for a different coat of paint, that's your business. I'm not trying to knock you. It just doesn't do anything for me. It is a bit annoying to me that as of right now, there doesn't seem to be any plans on selling the Aegis specific content on its own. You have to get the season pass. The DLC model is a little bit annoying. They also include some Persona 3 Portable specific content that I wasn't expecting. So it's like, okay, you can do a little bit of what happens in Portable, but you're not going to let us choose to play as Kotone? Sure, Atlas, whatever you say. These gripes and excluded content aren't deal breakers for me. They're kind of the things that would take this game from an 8.5 to like a 9 in my eyes. At the very least, the product that we did get is like really solid. I literally couldn't put it down to the point where I developed eye strain and my face got kind of fucked up. Some non-spoiler stuff about the game. I think the story is still really strong. I didn't notice any meaningful changes to the structure itself from the original to this one. It's quite faithful. I've touched on this already, but they seemed to be focused on adding content to fill in the gaps while still maintaining the shape of the original. The 90 hours that I spent in Reload were really easy to spend. I took my time. I listened to the full voice lines. The voice talent that they've hired, for the most part, is pretty strong. I also mentioned that I hate grinding, but I did it in this game because that's how much I liked it. And at a certain point, all of the trophies were attainable and I was like, I might as well do it. On to the graphics. The game is so beautiful. It is so good looking. Persona has always been stylish, but Persona 5, especially because that was moving on to newer technology, is really when the games were able to become stylized. So having really unique menu screens, UI. In Reload, they fold in a lot of water symbolism, water imagery that didn't exist in the original, but maybe it's just because the game is blue, like that's her color. All of the menu screens show Makoto floating in water very beautifully. It's sleek, it's modernized, it's obviously inspired by the changes made in Persona 5. Aesthetically though, and I've seen this opinion shared by a lot of people, I think Reload is a little bit too vibrant. The original has a really dull, muddy quality. Again, technological limitations mean they aren't able to do as much, but P3 is like really bright, really saturated, gorgeous colors. I think with the older games as well, they were more comfortable with drawing the characters in an uglier way, for lack of a better term. Everyone has had a little bit of a glow up here. I think all of the characters are pretty good looking now. I've seen some people say that they tried to Genshinify this game, which I think that's a huge stretch, but I understand where that is coming from because the tone does change with how much the colors pop. I think the strength of the vibrant daytime is how well the nighttime dark hour stuff contrasts with it. During the dark hour, everything adopts kind of a green tone. The moon turns this chartreusey kind of yellow. I thought the dark hour scenes looked incredible. They really take on a menacing, unnatural feeling. So there are some pros and cons for me to this aesthetic change. There's also a ton of stuff to do in the game. There's an abundance of choices. They add more ways to spend your time. It wasn't until I was almost at the end that I started kind of phoning it in because I didn't have as much to like work on, but I felt that developing your social stats in Reload was much easier. Makoto needs to work on his courage, academics, and charm in order to mostly unlock certain social interactions. I found that was easier. I maxed them out much earlier in Reload compared to Portable. The characters are still great, the writing is still strong, and it's brought to life really incredibly. A new addition that I really loved was the evening dorm hangouts. They're optional, but they have really good in-game benefits if you do all of the scenes. Yukari getting discounted healing for watching movies with her is busted, honestly, and it's nice to spend casual time with your dorm mates. I lived in dorms for my first 2 years of university, and it definitely reminded me of those times. I had a little bit of nostalgia. But beyond that, a light criticism that I have of the original is that the cast feels a little bit more like colleagues than they do friends, and there's no opportunities to hang out with the boys in the original. So for me, narratively, it just makes a little bit more sense that you can actually ask the people that you live with to spend time with you. Also, what a fabulous time in the trend cycle to drop a Y2K late aughts remake. The flip phones, the styling, it's all here. Now onto the spoiler portion of the video. We're going to get into the story. I don't like to discuss things in graphic detail, but content warning for suicide, gun violence, self-harm. The game starts in April, which in Japan is near the beginning of the school year. Makoto has just transferred to Gekkoukan High and moved into the Iwatodai dorms, where he meets Yukari Takeba, Junpei Iori, Akihiko Sanada, and Mitsuru Kirijo. Makoto, Yukari, and Junpei are all in the same class and emulate the age-old trio of competent boy, idiot boy, and girl. Akihiko is the captain of the boxing club. Mitsuru is the student council president and heiress of the Kirijo group. Both are upperclassmen and both have secrets. Shuji Ikutsuki is the dorm director. He's the resident adult of the group. He doesn't live in the dorms, but he's kicking around every now and again. He loves a pun, he's a bumbling idiot, and I hate this man with an absolute passion. We open with Makoto getting off the train as he's moving into the dorm for the first time, and he experiences the dark hour, which he's traveling very late at night. But anyways, everyone turns into a coffin because death is the main theme, as we'll come to know very intimately. We also catch a glimpse of Yukari with a gun-like object to her head, and she seems very scared. Upon arrival, Makoto is greeted by Yukari and Mitsuru. Yukari has her holster on with the gun-like object in it. Yukari's like, don't ask questions. Honestly, just go to bed. Your dorm room's upstairs. We won't talk about this ever. Bye-bye. And then they monitor him through the security cameras overnight because he can experience the dark hour, and not everyone can do that. On April 9th, the dorm is attacked by the giant magician shadow, again tying to the Arcana. Akihiko gets injured in this initial fight, and Makoto awakens to his persona Orpheus after taking Yukari's evoker from her. The evoker is the gun, and what was happening earlier was that she was too afraid to summon her persona. Personas in this game have to be summoned through simulating death. During this standoff, Orpheus transforms into Thanatos and then tears the shadow apart. This is when Makoto is introduced to Cease, which is the special extracurricular execution squad. For whatever reason, I didn't actually write it out in my notes because it's a stupid, silly name. Honestly, we don't even need to worry about it. Cease is their little school endorsed club. Anyways, Makoto is instated as the leader because he has the power to switch personas. Junpei moves into the dorm shortly after when he's spotted during the dark hour with Ikutsuki. So now we have our main trio. Makoto also meets Pharos as well, his sleep paralysis demon friend who narratively functions to warn us about the major shadows, and he shares some premonitions as to how the plot is going to unfold. While dreaming, Makoto is also invited to the Velvet Room by Igor and his assistant Elizabeth, who is a gorgeous elevator attendant. Elizabeth gives us quests throughout the game, but mechanically the Velvet Room serves to help us manage our personas. You can also take Elizabeth on little dates. They're pretty light comic relief scenes because she isn't human, so she doesn't really get the rules of engagement. Also, in flavor dialogue, when you're going through the requests menu, she acknowledges the fact that she has a little brother who replaces her in Portable if you're playing as the girl. Theodore does not exist in reload. In May, we continue living life. We join the track team. We join student council. We make friends with some old people and also a pervert. Normal student daily activities. We also learn that to end the dark hour, we need to beat 11 more big Arcana shadows. Junpei is struggling a lot with Makoto's leader era. Junpei is really annoyed that he's not the leader himself. Mitsuru is our party navigator, and Akihiko is still injured, so he's out of commission. This full moon shadow is the priestess, who is somehow moving a train at full speed when electricity doesn't work, and we have a time limit to stop the train. Junpei starts being annoying, and he goes off by himself because he's a brat, and quickly gets over that because we have to beat the boss together. All is well. And then leading into June, there have been some bullying rumors and some ghost stories going around because girls have been going missing at the school. Fuka Yamagishi is one of the girls who's getting bullied and has disappeared, primarily by her classmate Natsuki, who locks Fuka at the school, and then she disappears during the dark hour when the school transforms into Tartarus. It's a one-way door. She can't come back. We rescue her on the full moon, and she awakens to her persona during the fight against the Emperor and Empress shadows. We're also shown that apathy syndrome and the shadows can affect people in different ways. Students are starting to hear mysterious voices that are trying to lure them to the school at night. Natsuki starts hearing this voice and comes to the school during the big fight, and Fuka protects her. After this night, Natsuki forgets that she experienced the dark hour, and her and Fuka become good pals after an overdue apology. Akihiko is back in action by this point, and Mitsuru joins us in combat as well as Fuka takes over as our navigator. Ikutsuki also gives the group Tartarus-specific gear, which I really want to love. Like, these new designs don't introduce major changes, but I really don't like Yukari or Mitsuru's new looks. Like, everyone else looks pretty much the same, just with a couple extra accessories, or it's a stylized version of what they normally wear anyways. I just think they cover up the striking parts of Mitsuru and Yukari's designs. They don't work as well for me. In July, it's going around that couples are succumbing to apathy syndrome, so we battle the Hierophant and Lover's shadows during the full moon at a love hotel. Our party here experiences the lingering voice controlling their actions, kind of like Natsuki did last month. Yukari is scripted to be in your party for this mission, but while we're under control, the party splits off into rooms, and Makoto waits in the bedroom while Yukari is in the shower. It's implied that the shadow was going to make them woohoo, Zul, because the voice is telling Makoto to give in to desire, but probably once that resolves, they're going to die in the bed. The party breaks free from the control, but of course not before Yukari walks out in a towel. Once she comes to, she slaps Makoto in the face, which she does a lot throughout the game. Yukari is a friend who hits. I mostly bring up this point at all because Akihiko and Junpei are the other two people that I brought for this fight, and you can infer that the couple who split off into the other room also had a similar scene. So, you know, I'm just contemplating as to whether or not the shadows are equal opportunity. Like, are they inclusive? Are they allies? Anyways, after defeating these two bosses, the audience is shown Strega, who was our main adversary group, and we learn that they've been following the party since about May. We're still in July. Summer break also starts this month, so the party heads to Yakushima for a little beach vacation at one of Mitsuru's many summer homes, but not before meeting Ken Amada, who is a grade schooler with persona potential. Obviously, the team has reservations about letting an actual child fight with them, so right now he's just moving into the dorms and hanging out. We head on our little island vacation, and this is Yukari's big moment. In the background, she's been trying to dig up information on Mitsuru because she can tell that the upperclassmen are hiding something. They have secrets, and Mitsuru's family, the Kirijo group, owns the school. They're encouraging Tartarus activities, and they used to employ Yukari's father, who is now dead. Yeah, he was a researcher with the Kirijo group, and he died studying the shadows under Mitsuru's grandfather. The research was being held at the school where there was a massive explosion, innocent people died, and Yukari's family took a lot of heat for it because her dad was the person who was thrown under the bus. Fuka is a giant nerd. She loves a computer, that one. She's a woman in STEM. So Yukari asks her to be a pro hacker and collect some evidence. Fuka was really emulating Lady Gaga in the White House.
And I looked for evidence.
She was hacking the servers. So all of this stuff comes to a boil while they're on vacation because Mitsuru's dad is there, and he clocks that Yukari is the dead researcher's daughter. He shows the group her dad's last research log, which he films while the facility is exploding. The truth, wink wink, upsets Yukari, and she runs onto the beach. Makoto runs after her, and the two can share a tender moment depending on what options you choose. Honestly, I think if you are going to romance anybody, it really should be Yukari. Not to ignite shipping wars, I accidentally do that a lot on this channel, but Yukari's route has the most going for it narratively. To hug her in this moment while emotions are running high and she's your classmate who you've been hanging out with every day for a few months. Also, dating rumors have been circulating these two literally since the first day of school. The whole class manifested this couple coming together. I don't always choose to date in games, but I did elect to date Yukari. One, because it's a trophy unlock condition, but two, they have chemistry. Since we are at the beach, anime swimsuit nonsense is an obligation, not a choice. There's a segment that's way too long where Junpei, resident horny idiot best friend, spearheads the effort to pick up women on the beach with Akihiko and Makoto. None of the three are necessarily at the place where women would want to date them, so they do strike out. I have to mention here that in the original, there is a transphobic predator stereotype. They thankfully have changed this to a cult MLM type of lady who tries to sell us like alien-proof sunscreen or something. I'm glad they took literally the smallest step in the right direction. Should some of the men be queer dateable options in this game? Absolutely. But you know, progress is unfortunately a slow upward battle. The boys are then taken in by the ravishing beauty of Aigis in a really frumpy sundress. This scene, I have to suspend my disbelief here a little bit because she looks fine. Each of them attempt to flirt with her, but she's only interested in Makoto, and she's interested a lot. Ikutsuki reveals that Aigis is a robotic anti-shadow weapon and has no idea how she reactivated and why she was on the beach conveniently while we're here. He doesn't get it. He doesn't know. She comes back to the dorms with us. She joins our party because despite not being human, she can wield a persona. Once we're back, Koromaru, a dog from the nearby shrine, defeats a shadow during the dark hour with his persona, so he joins us as well. So now we have a grade schooler, a robot, a dog, an idiot. The whole gang is here. During the August full moon, we defeat the Chariot and Justice shadows in an underground military bunker. We also have our initial encounter with Strega, but only the boys for plot reasons. Ken joins us in the fighting right at the end of August as well. Come September, school is back in session. Shinjiro Aragaki, another third year, has finally been convinced to rejoin Cease by Akihiko after getting asked like every month throughout the game. He comes back right before we fight the Hermit Shadow at the nightclub. I think Shinjiro's treatment especially is a testament to how much effort the remake puts into showing the cast as friends. His role is expanded, he gets the same treatment as all of the other characters, but it's all crammed into the month of September because, spoiler, he dies at the beginning of October. The boys don't have social links, they have linked episodes, which are effectively the same. They each have 5 linked episodes as opposed to 10 social link interactions. They're not associated with the Arcana system at play, but they have different in-game benefits. His linked episodes reveal more of his backstory with Akihiko and Mitsuru as well. Obviously, our protagonist self-insert has to be a conduit for all of this progress, but Mitsuru ends up sharing a lot of details of them exploring Tartarus as a group of 3 in the past. But I loved all of this exposition. I got emotional when they show a picture of the 3 of them when they were younger together. Shinjiro was such a standout character for me in a way that he wasn't in the original. I tend to ignore him because I'm like, why am I going to invest in someone who's going to die anyways? I was more interested in getting that kind of gut punch in this experience. I wish there was a way we could save him. Maybe I don't know, playing as a girl. Maybe if you play as a girl, they actually have an option where he lives. Maybe. During the October full moon, Ken and Shinjiro are missing in action because Ken is making an attempt on Shinjiro's life. While the party beats the fortune and the strength shadows in the background, honestly, who cares about them? Real plot is happening right now somewhere else. We learn that the reason Shinjiro quit Cease is because 3 years ago, he lost control of his persona and killed Ken's mom by accident. So now this little 10-year-old lives only for revenge. Ken is about to do it, but then this interaction is disrupted by Takeya from Strega. He tells Ken to just do it, and then when Ken doesn't move right away, he's just like, okay, I'm actually gonna shoot you both. And he does that, but then Shinjiro, the hero of the story, jumps in front of the bullet and saves Ken's life, even though he was gonna let Ken kill him anyways. This is honestly the emotional peak of the game for me. It's brutal, and there's nothing you can do about it. I also find it particularly jarring that Takeya has a real gun, because at this point, we're many tens of hours into the game, and everyone has an evoker, but those are fake guns. So the imagery that the audience is seeing disarms guns as something that's dangerous because the rules of them are different. They don't do the same thing. So the fact that Takeya has a real gun is like alarming. It kind of serves to snap you out of that hero fantasy a little bit. The game is never not serious, but I think the characters begin to take things a little bit more seriously after this moment. Shinjiro has a funeral at the school. It's all very sad. No one knows that he sacrificed himself to save a child because it happened during the dark hour. So it just looks like unfortunate gang violence. Ken and Akihiko bond over this, and they unlock their ultimate personas after having an emotional breakthrough. Atlas, please bring back story-driven persona evolutions that demand actual character growth and not just like the social link maxing. Please and thank you. I breezed through some of this for the sake of flow, but Junpei meets a girl named Shidori over the summer, and he's smitten. What he doesn't know, but the audience does, is that she's a part of Strega. She's just been conveniently missing when they interact with us. She's drawing at the train station. He compliments her art. He was a boy, she was a girl. Can I make it any more obvious? During the September mission, she kidnaps Junpei and holds him captive on the dorm's roof to prevent the party from fighting the shadow. He can't reach them, so that doesn't happen. But once they return, they apprehend her and trap her in a hospital room. Mitsuru tries interrogating her, but Junpei is the only one she'll talk to. At one point, her persona tries to strangle her. Shinjiro comes in with a medicine that suppresses personas. He takes it because of his guilt over losing control, but Strega takes it because their personas didn't manifest in a natural way, and their personas are like evil. They're trying to break out of their human prisons or something, so they have this inclination to kill the thing that's holding them back. There's drama because Shinjiro has the meds. That means he's involved with Strega a little bit. Back to November, where now we're on to the last big shadow, the Hanged Man. Takeya is a freak. I haven't talked about his right hand, Jin, but literally I can't imagine anybody cares about Jin. He's a bad character. Strega overall is a very poorly motivated villain group. Cliche, you don't understand, playing devil's advocate. We hit all of those big check marks as to why they're annoying, and they come from a very poorly explained position. Their main motivation is that they want the Dark Hour to live forever for stupid villain reasons. Reload does give Strega extra content, and Takeya even has one-on-one scenes with Makoto, but he stays just being wrong and strong. They do nothing to actually fix why Strega was bad. We're fighting on a bridge. They block us from getting into it with the big bad.
Wait a sec. Don't tell me you're gonna jump. I'd rather die than surrender to you. Take a good look. This is how we live.
What does that have to do with anything, bitch?
But we take them out, head to the boss, beat it, and now all of the big shadows are gone. The Hanged Man was the 12th one. The Dark Hour should be over, right? They have a lovely sushi dinner the next day, but the Dark Hour still happens. Ikutsuki doesn't come to dinner. Aigis is also suspiciously missing. Pharos, our sleep paralysis demon buddy, says goodbye because he has all of his memories back now. He understands. He finally knows, quote unquote, what happened. It certainly has nothing to do with defeating the 12 shadows, and the next arcana in numerical order is death, right? Pharos, for context, is representative of the death social link arcana as well. Next, we have what I think is the dumbest scene in the whole game, where Ikutsuki betrays the party. Aigis has been reprogrammed by him to capture the party, and they all get strung up on crucifixes. Mitsuru's dad tries to protect them. Ikutsuki shoots him and tells Aigis to shoot everybody, but power of friendship, she's able to overcome the command and like reprogram herself. After losing Aigis and everyone gets brought down, Ikutsuki realizes the plan is a bust, so he jumps off the building that they're on, but not before revealing that the footage we were shown of Yukari's father over the summer was doctored by him so that his dying message was changed. This plot point is just awful. I've been poking around online just to see if anybody has like a really solid argument as to why maybe this scene is actually good, but I think general opinion aligns with mine that the Ikutsuki betrayal is poorly established. They do very little to sow the seeds of doubt with him throughout the game. There's a couple things, but honestly, I think if you're playing this game blind and you pretend to know that Ikutsuki is a bad guy or there's something suspicious about him that would result in this, I think you're a liar. I think people who are like, I saw it coming from a mile away, this adult who can experience the Dark Hour but has no persona, he's in and out all the time. I just think it's so poorly established that I don't believe you. It just comes from out of nowhere. And I'm not going to even get into why he does this because it's also stupid. He's just conveniently done a great job of pretending to be normal and nice. There are even little fan service scenes where you can access the control panel that we were spied on with at the very beginning, and you can basically peek into everybody's dorm room throughout the year. Of course, the guys' scenes are all pretty innocuous and silly, and the girls' scenes each sexualize them in one way or another. But Ikutsuki also has one of these scenes where in private, he's just out loud joke crafting puns to himself. And if that doesn't exist to disarm the audience and pretend that this guy's an idiot, I don't know what it's for. They do make it more obvious that he's gonna betray us because they add a plot point in Reload where everyone needs to get a checkup from Kirijo doctors. Ikutsuki has a one-on-one scene with Makoto, and he really lets the mask slip. Not directly, but he answers a phone call and you can infer from the phone call that he's up to no good. But other than this, it's way too subtle. Anyways, that's my piece on Akutsuki. I'm letting that go. Yukari sits down and she watches the undoctored video of her dad where he now says to not kill the shadows because they'll reunite if defeated and that'll bring about the end of the world. The doctored footage stuff also just never worked for me. Maybe it's because it hinges on a plot point that I already think is stupid, which is the Akutsuki betrayal. I just think it's a weird lie to tell your audience that's really hard to notice. I know I'm coming at this with a sour opinion already, so I'm open to being wrong about this. Maybe the video does have weird jump cuts in it, but I don't remember seeing that or noticing that something was off about the video. I guess it has to happen to propel Yukari and Mitsuru's stories forward. Anyways, Yukari watches the video, she learns the truth about her dad, she unlocks her ultimate persona. All is well in the kingdom. Scene change. In honor of the game, I am filming this portion of the video at midnight, and I'm actually coming to you live from the dark hour, and it's really getting crazy in here. All of my friends have turned into coffins, and 2 of them are actually going to sleep together in my bed. So I guess I'm glad in a way for that they're now unable to move. It kind of just puts a damper on the vibe when everyone transmogrifies into a coffin. Just like a cute casual reminder of our own mortality. Anyways, we're still in November. A transfer student named Ryoji Mochizuki joins our class. He's a really huge flirt. He hits on every girl in sight. I will be plugging my banger tweet here. In case you didn't know, I'm talking about Yukari and Mitsuru having a deep chat, and then Ryoji invites them out for dinner or something on the rooftop. I think Yukari slaps him in the face. Allegedly. Unconfirmed, I don't remember. Ryoji is also fast friends with Junpei because horny. Ryoji gets similar treatment to Shinjiro in that he's only really around for a couple months of the game, but they really flesh him out, make him a full character. Ryoji also has a series of linked episodes, which I didn't know that they were going to give him. Again, they just serve to flesh out his character a little bit more. Fun fact about Ryoji, he is the harbinger of death. He used to be Pharos, but now that the shadows have reformed and Pharos has left Makoto's body, they have become Ryoji and are now out and living in the world. Aigis also hates Ryoji. Ryoji and Makoto have queer undertones. They have a very special bond because their spirits are connected. And Ryoji technically lived in Makoto for 10 years. Ryoji also loves to romanticize. He's very poetic. He loves a deep chat. What if I was a depressed messiah and you were death incarnate, and then we kissed after you played me a silly little piano ditty? And we were boys. We go to Kyoto for our class trip. Not much happens. There is a skippable social event with Ryoji here, but there's no reason to not have a conversation with him about the beauty of life by a riverbank. One of the only notable changes that they make in Reload that I bear particular umbrage with is that in Kyoto, Yukari and Mitsuru actually resolve the dead dad sympathy conversation that they were having earlier. In the original, they have it underneath a bridge, so it feels more private. These 2 girls who have not been friends for most of this narrative are finally having a vulnerable heart-to-heart with each other. However, in Reload, they use the same setting that the Ryoji conversation takes place in, and it's just so public. There's so many people around. I just feel like these characters wouldn't be open with each other like that on a crowded street. Also, Yukari slaps Mitsuru in the face Again, she's a friend who hits. But yeah, she hits Mitsuru and obviously nobody responds. The scene isn't supposed to take place here. So that was just a really weird change and one that was felt, especially for an important scene. Mitsuru's persona evolves at the end of their discussion. So it's an important scene. It's a key moment for the character. It's more notable that it takes place somewhere inappropriate towards the end of the month. Now that we don't have the full moon timeline to really keep the plot moving forward, we finally need to have some human conflict. So Chidori breaks out of the hospital and we have an underwhelming fight against her. It's not really supposed to be a real boss fight. It's scripted to be interrupted before it's over. It gets interrupted by the other members of Strega and Takeya shoots Junpei. He's a little bit too trigger happy for someone who wants to coax the end of the world. Like, don't you want to just chill and wait for that to happen? That ends up being his motivation. So Junpei dead on the ground. Chidori's persona is very powerful. She's got crazy fire magic. She's a healer. She's a navigator. She's many of our party members all wrapped into one. So she casts this ultimate healing spell, brings Junpei back to life at the cost of sacrificing herself. They have a cute little afterlife limbo scene together where he's in a hospital bed and Chidori's like, it's not your time yet, you have to go back. And so she finally reciprocates his affection in her last words. Junpei absorbs her persona, which allows his to evolve. They have a great fight against Strega. They just get to run away. We will see them again. At the start of December, nothing really happens on the full moon because there's no more shadows for us to deal with, but Aigis is just getting bad vibes, so she goes to the Moonlight Bridge, and Ryoji is here, basking in the dark hour. We have a flashback to 10 years ago, post-big laboratory explosion, where Aigis is fighting against Ryoji, except he's in a Thanatos-adjacent death form. Aigis was losing the fight, and her only option at the time was to seal death into the nearest child who just happened to survive a car crash, killing both of their parents. And that was, you guessed it, you win so much money in this lottery, in this quiz game. It was Makoto, and that's why he was harboring Pharos within him for such a long time, and why he's spiritually linked to everything that's going on. It's Aigis's fault. So back in the present, she fights Ryoji again, gets bodied to the point where she has to go back into the body shop and get some detailing work done, and she just feels a huge sense of regret for doing what she did to Makoto. Aigis is entering her not a robot anymore, but still not a girl arc, but she gets written out of the story again for a little bit as she's recovering. Her remorse is also why she's been so obsessed with protecting Makoto throughout the whole game. The group catches up to Aigis after the fight, and Ryoji reveals everything about himself, that he's not human, he is an amalgamation of the shadows, and his role is to signal that the planet is like ready to be destroyed. He's inducing Nyx's arrival. Nyx is, classic Grecian goddess of night, but here she's a representation of death, the end times, and she's the source of the shadows, apathy syndrome, all of the actual supernatural ongoings. Ryoji gives us a choice. So at the end of the month, December 31st, there's another full moon, and he says either the group can kill him and they'll lose all their memories, but they can live peacefully and without the burden of having to protect the world from the shadows. They'll be able to do that until Nyx does her thing, or they let Ryoji live. Nyx comes and they take their chances and try to fight her. I made a second save to see both routes and if they were meaningfully different at all. It's not different. If you choose the bad ending and kill Ryoji, they just show you a snippet of the full ending. Obviously, you have to let him live, and then we get into our last month leading into the final battle. January is the last playable month, and you have to get to the top of Tartarus. I'm very glad that Tartarus got a major visual overhaul from the original. The blocks are all at least structurally somewhat different, so it keeps you more so engaged. Also, the top two blocks, if you were playing this game on any sort of hallucinogenic, I think they would be a feast for the eyes. Aigis is finally rebuilt and she gets really upset at the group for wanting to fight Nyx, but this resilience is what makes her kind of understand humanity itself and her own humanity. So now that she again is becoming more human, she unlocks her ultimate persona, and now everyone in the party has them except for Koromaru, but it's because he's a dog, so I'm assuming they weren't really trying to emphasize his character growth. January 31st is mission day. We climb to the top of Tartarus. Jin and Takeya are there once more to obstruct our journey because they're two little awful cockroaches that simply won't die. If they were better villains, of course, this standoff would have been very exciting. But ideologically, you can only go so far being like, you just don't understand. You're a hypocrite. the death. You don't want the dark hour to be over. What's wrong with you? Jin is secretly like a MySpace influencer, and they don't talk about that at all. A cult is going around. People are talking about Nyx descending onto the planet, and Takeya is like the leader of that movement because he is symbolically tied to Jesus with his little crown of thorns and his gun and his edge. The biggest thing holding this game back is the insistence that we need human villains, but the unwillingness to make them good in any way. Takeya and Jin are stupid. Ikutsuki is stupid. And they're all part of the same little dumb organization, stupid together. There's technically 3 fights at the end here, one against Jin, one against Takeya, and then the final fight against Nyx. I did rotate my team so everyone at least got 1 fight in. It just felt emotionally correct. This last fight, not bad, surprisingly. I feel like Nyx didn't have a lot of health, and it didn't feel long, and I'm so grateful for that. After beating Nyx, she flies up to the moon. Also, side note, I saw a lot of articles referring to Nyx as he, him, and I get that it's Ryoji, but like, we couldn't even do a they, them. Nyx is referred to as she, and she's serving, she's mother. Anyways, she flies into this weird construct in the moon, and Makoto has his last power of friendship moment where he flies up after her to the moon in the Velvet Room elevator, which was a wonderful touch. I forgot that that even happened.
How are you doing? Ça va, I hope. I am here for you, like you was there for me.
What on earth made me think of you at a time like this?
Burn My Dread plays as he faces off against this golden egg, and then he uses the friendship spell to end Nyx forever. Cease has a weird scene in space that is very reminiscent of Neon Genesis Evangelion, where they're like, you did it, Shinji. Just kidding. They're concerned that Makoto is dead. And Ryoji's disembodied voice is like, everything is fine. Eventually they find themselves outside of the school. The dark hour actually is over. Tartarus is gone. Their school is just a school. And then Makoto comes out through the school entrance doors and everyone is excited. Life goes on as normal until one of the last days of school in March. No one remembers anything about the dark hour except for Makoto and Aigis, but they can't really share that because no one else knows and they wouldn't really believe them. Makoto's health is also severely deteriorating. Everyone he chats with towards the end of the game is like, are you okay? You look awful. Like, you look so sick. Do you need me to call you an ambulance? As Mitsuru is delivering her valedictorian speech, Makoto is resting his head on Aigis' lap on the school rooftop, and the whole gang finally gets their memories back. So they all run upstairs, but by the time they get there, Makoto has already passed away in his sleep. And that's the game. Everybody clap. I love this game so much. Obviously, I wouldn't be making a video about it if I didn't. This might be a little bit snobbish, but I think a lot of games struggle to be art, or they might be hard to analyze as pieces of literature, if that makes sense. It brings a different level of enjoyment to be able to consider on a higher level why some of the choices were made in this game. Clearly, death is the main theme. They aestheticize it throughout the game through the use of evokers, the coffins. Tartarus is a version of the underworld from Greek myth. Thanatos is a god of death. Nyx is a god of night and nothingness. I feel like if you've only played Persona 4 and or 5, you might not know why the Arcana is so important, but I think it was chosen specifically because there's a death card, because it's 2 sides of the same coin. It's ending, but it also represents beginning. And you can string along a story in the major Arcana cards called The Fool's Journey, but it's basically emerging into the world. You grow, you learn, you develop, you achieve some things by adulthood, and then the death card, at least in life's journey, mostly represents a shift, because then you have the latter half of the Arcana cards that symbolize the many ups and downs of life until you actually reach the end of your lifespan. Death also creates an interesting foil with the Fool card. Numerically, its number is 0. It's not a numbered card, so it's used to represent infinite possibilities. Also, because it's the start of the Fool's errand, it represents how you can do anything with your life. I think from a gameplay level, it represents how you can have an array of persona that represents you as the player. You choose how to spend your time. If you're not doing a completionist run where you do everything perfectly, all the social links are done, you choose who you want to be your friend, who you want to spend your time with. And since we have 2 characters in the narrative who very specifically represent these roles too, they become foils to each other with very similar meanings. The Fool represents everything, but also nothingness, and death represents an ending, but also beginnings. And then you have this protagonist self-insert who obviously is intended to be projected onto, which is why he doesn't have voiced lines of dialogue or anything. It's generally understood though that the main character is affected by depression or just has a general sort of apathy towards life, but he begins to warm up to his surroundings as he makes meaningful connections. Persona 3 also has a series of movies where they retell the plot. I haven't seen them, but I've heard that they lean into that characterization in the films. But even in the game, it's supported by how often he's able to say like, I don't care in terms of dialogue choices, or choose options that are silent, or just in general don't really activate the situation around him. His characterization also creates a really beautiful contrast with how Ryoji has this zest for life. Like he's so happy, he's so ready and willing to experience, and he's making a lot of plans for the future, even though he's not human and literally doesn't have one. There's something paradoxical about the fact that he wants to live, but he's non-human. Granted, the game goes far to explore entities who aren't human but having human experiences. I think you could also that the narrative of the game follows the fool's journey kind of structure. I think Shinjiro's death happening around the middle of the story really serves as that pivotal moment when our characters start figuring things out and they still have trials and tribulations. Their personas becoming new ones are just one facet of reflecting that. Our main cast is also all touched by death in one way or another. Almost all of them have at least one dead parent. Junpei loses his girlfriend. Fuka, interestingly, is the only character who doesn't have this similarity. I won't get too into this just because my feelings haven't really changed. I think the cast is still quite strong. In the original, for me, Fuka was the weakest character. I think she was pretty poorly developed. I also complained a little bit about her not really feeling like a nerd in the game, but like randomly she's really good at tech stuff. And I think they were able to push aside a little bit of her shyness while still allowing her to be more reserved compared to other characters. But because she talks more, because every character has benefited from additional screen time, at least we get to hear her be a nerd. Like Fuka would absolutely use Reddit in this day and age. Like I can just hear it in the way that she's written. Everyone was pretty good. I really enjoy this cast together. And I think, like I said, they've only benefited from getting more screen time, especially as a group. I was also pretty happy with the way the linked episodes for the boys were handled. I think they're fine. I just think they're really long scenes. And I don't think Koromaru has 5 interactions worth of interesting content to give. His plot is about dealing with the aftermath of his old caretaker's death and how he used to watch over the shrine, and a lot of people like are familiar with him as a dog. I think Akihiko and Junpei's were both good. They establish a little bit more what they want to do with their futures. Reload does the thing a couple times where a character goes, oh, I didn't mention that? Yeah, I'm really into baseball. Or, oh, I'm surprised I didn't tell you. And those little writing quirks to me felt like someone on the writing team kind of acknowledging a fan gripe or plot holes. Just whenever they used that particular phrasing, especially for things that were obviously new or not really explored in the original game, that's how those instances read to me. I already touched on Shinjiro's, I already touched on Ryoji's. I don't cry a lot during video games. I didn't cry at all during this game. I might have if I wasn't already familiar with the plot. However, one of Ken's episodes, Ken has lived his life to avenge his mother, but he hasn't really thought of what his life is going to look like outside of that. So he is implying that he is prepared to die. There's this scene where he asks you to take care of his hamster in case anything happens to him. Something about that scene and just this like elementary age child being really aware of his own death. Something about that got me like really emotional. Ken's mom is dead. His dad's not in the picture. I don't know where his dad is. Obviously, both of Makoto's parents are dead. There's a lot of instances in the game where I think Makoto could relate to other people about the fact that his parents have passed away in at least a dialogue option. But he does have one of these with Ken in this moment, and that's the dialogue option that I picked. I cried. I got so upset. I felt so bad for this kid. I was really sympathetic towards him. So the Shinjiro exposition stuff was really good, but to me that was like the most impactful linked episode. I mentioned earlier that I got all of the trophies in this game except one. And of course it's the most inconvenient one to go back and get because I can't just save scum. I was not able to max out all of the social links in one playthrough, and I was really heartbroken. I thought I could do it, but I think I made some pretty big mistakes. My TLDR advice, if you don't want to follow a guide for every single day, focus on the school ones. You have way more people at school that you have to deal with. At night, focus on getting your social stats up, but really pay attention to all of your school characters. There are going to be big portions of the game where you can't interact with anybody at school, but you'll be able to interact with the fewer amount of social links that are outside of the school. So if you have the choice between an in-school and an out-of-school social link, choose someone who goes to school with you. Also, doing everything perfectly, picking the right answers, bringing a persona to increase the social stats that you get, that's all fine and dandy. However, there are some characters for which doing that doesn't matter, because you will have to do extra hangouts with them outside of the mandatory 10 in order to complete their link. Avoid doing that if possible, unless you literally have nothing to do. It's better for you to hang out with somebody else, and then later in the game, they do give you the option to increase your social stats on the shared computer at night. Do that, because there's only 2 social link options at night, and it's very easy to max them out without really conflicting with anything else in the game. Those are my gentle things. Also, don't trust availability guides online. I made that mistake, and I thought I was going to be able to max out Mitsuru's rank, but randomly in January and December, she's not available the Monday to Saturday that the internet says that she's available. So I made it all the way to rank 9. I was so annoyed. I wanted to at least finish hers, and then I'd feel a little bit better. I didn't finish hers, and I didn't finish Aegis's. I beat the Reaper, and I fused Messiah. And for what? Replaying is not worth the fake accolade unless they included the girl route. My opinions of the social links are generally the same. Kenji is still an annoying pervert, but I think the tone has shifted in his social link to not take him seriously. I don't know if that's how it was supposed to feel in the original. Again, I played Portable. There's no voice acting. It's just text, or there's very limited voice acting. But the way they characterized him in Reload was certainly that he was an idiot, and I don't think we were supposed to be rooting for him at all. Fuka's link is fine. I'm glad she starts a computer club at the end of it because she's a woman in STEM. Mitsuru's link is like bottom 3 in this game for me. I think it's so bad. Her whole deal is that she doesn't eat commoner food, and she asks you to show her that world. And to me, it's just not realistic that Shinjiro and Akihiko, her very good long-term friends, haven't taken her to ramen at least once. That's the implication, and I don't believe it. Also, she is like head over heels for the protagonist, and she even confesses her feelings at the end of the link. I just don't think that the protagonist is someone that she'd be interested in. I didn't buy it. I was actually really offended. I thought it was such a disservice to the character. Yukari's still good. I liked her link. Actually, no. She's my girlfriend. I loved it. I loved her link. Chihiro's was new to me because I didn't finish it in Portable because I thought it was boring, but I was pleasantly surprised at the stealing school funds twist. She gets accused of that. She doesn't actually do it, but that at least kept me engaged because there was some sort of drama. I hate that they maintained Toriyumi's crush on Makoto. I don't think the game is encouraging it, but I just didn't want to see it. Leave the teacher student fantasies in the drafts. Leaves them to Chihiro because she actually really likes them and endorses them at the end of the game, surprisingly enough. If Persona wasn't afraid of gay people and Keisuke was a dateable character, it would be over. He's so girly pop. I'll share the screenshot, but literally, not to stereotype the way people position their bodies.
Have you ever tried to walk in 6-inch heels, ladies? I mean, I haven't. But I can imagine you might sway a little bit and lean on the walls. So there's that.
I was the homophobic dog meme being like, I know what you are. Yuko is not like other girls, but she's also kind of like girl in an indie movie. Her rank 10, she has a line that made me guffaw. I laughed so hard because she says, whenever I come to this field, I get so nostalgic. And it's the school track. She's the track team manager. I don't know if the implication is that they're training at a different field than the one that we use on the track team. I was like, we just had a major track meet. Something about this field, something about being back here, I just get so, I don't know, emotional. We were just here. The season's not done, babes. I'll see you tomorrow at practice. Oh my God. Bebe having the worst French accent was absolutely sending me. I don't like his social link because I cannot separate the similarities between Bebe and Ollie London. That Venn diagram is just a little bit too much of a single circle for me. Every time he said literally anything, I repeated it back to the screen. It was so funny to me.
How are you doing? Ça va, I hope. I am here for you. Like you was there for me.
His whole presence is like, please join me in the fashion club. Actually, no, I feel like mine is too good. I'm going to make how you say kimono to impress my uncle, so he'll let me stay in Nihon. I'm crying. Anyways, moving on. Bebe is an absolute train wreck. The fact that Hayase gives us the key to his dead dad's old car to remember Hayase by when he moves randomly in the middle of the school year is such a bold choice. I just feel like that's something he should keep. And this is as good a time as any to bring up that I think Reload leans slightly too much into like the, wow, my life never would have been fixed had I not met you. Thank you so much for being the only person there for me and saving my fixing life. Thank you. You're my best friend. I can't wait to live many days and years and future with you. You know what I mean? They're leaning a little bit too heavily into like, protagonist isn't going to die at the end of this story, right? We'll be friends forever. Thank you. I could do voice acting. I definitely could have done a very good Bebe. I'll tell you that much. And that would have been a job. That would have been a job. The way that Nozomi introduces a cult plotline that is totally separate from the main story cult plotline that I breezed over is crazy. But what's even crazier is the fact that he is actively recruiting people into a cult. And after the end of the story, it just doesn't get addressed. It doesn't get addressed. Is he still a part of the cult? Is he still trying to recruit people? Is he still demanding exorbitant amounts of money for the entrance package into the cult? I would actually like to know. The rest of the links are fine. There are some that I talk a little bit more about in detail in my Portable video if you want to check that out. Speaking of Portable, I only asked for a few things when I made that video. They delivered on some and they did not on others. The expansion of the characters was mostly pretty good. I feel like I've knocked the villains enough. The only thing they could have done that would have really satisfied me narratively was just like fixing Strega's motivations. I'm glad that Ryoji and Shinjiro got more time, especially because in Portable it really feels like they're gone as quick as they came. They removed the transphobia, slay. They didn't add gay people, womp womp. They also added platonic options for all of the girls' social links, and I was very grateful for that because surprisingly, men and women in a straight sense can be friends. One major change, or at least I thought it was a change because I didn't know it existed in Portable, is that you can actually save Chidori. I don't know how to do it in Portable, but through Junpei's linked episodes, you're able to achieve that same outcome. There's a pretty meh explanation for it where like she's been using her healing magic on the flowers that Junpei brings her when he visits her at the hospital. And then when she dies, she gets buried with all of the flowers, but just absorbs that latent healing magic. So it turns out that she actually has a heartbeat again during the autopsy. And the scene itself is good where Junpei goes to visit her in the hospital and she has no memories, but she knows somewhere deep down in her psyche, in her spirit, that there's a very important person out there to her that she needs to find. Junpei cries. Yukari and Fuka are like ear to the door outside crying. The scene itself is well written. It's plausible. I just feel like it's a little bit of a, not a cop out, but you're making this really bold choice to kill a character off. And to undo that feels a little bit cheap. Also, this scene happens at the very end of January, so it's right before the end of the game, and there's not much opportunity for it to actually impact the plot. So it's cool that it happens. There's just like, unfortunately, no time for it to have any sort of impact really outside of the scene itself. I know this totally contradicts what I just said, but like if we're saving lives in Portable when you're playing as the girl, Shinjiro doesn't die necessarily. You can save his life. So if we're picking and choosing what we're including from Portable, can we save the one that I want to save? While we're at it, while I'm asking for things from Portable, where's the girl protagonist? Give me the FemC route. Please, 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 Atlas. They're never going to do it. I'll have to buy this game on PC and patch it. Anyways, this video is going to be 800 years long. Thank you for sitting through it. Please like, please subscribe, please comment. Have you played any Persona game? Which one is your favorite? I've openly said that Persona 3 is my favorite, but I've been seeing a lot of really cool content about the symbolism in Persona 4, so that makes me want to go check out Persona 4 Golden, because now that's one of the only ones I haven't played. Which Persona game is your favorite? Why is it your favorite? Would you want them to remake Persona 1 and 2 and 2 sequel? Are you an OG Persona fan? Have you played those games? Are they worth checking out? I know the vibe of them is very different from the modern Persona trilogy 3 through 5. Do you want to hear me chat more about Persona 3? Surprisingly enough, I do have more. I'm very interested in the Greek symbology of the game that I touched on a little bit, but I do think there's more symbolism to touch on that really interests me. And there's something more here as to how Greek mythology and Greek tragedy interact. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a great dark hour. Try not to get lost at the school and the Big Little Tower, and make sure you study in the evenings to get smart enough, because if you're not literally Einstein, you can't take Mitsuru to go get ramen because she's just an incapable, really rich girl. Good night. Oh my god, should I do my Pharaoh's voice? Good evening. The voice actor who also voices Ryoji and the protagonist, which is a very cool touch that links all three of them together. I love how this video was literally over. If you go play the game, listen. He pronounces the second E in evening. He doesn't say evening, he says evening. He adds an extra syllable in there. Good night.